After completing the paintwork on the body side of things and fixing some of those mistakes, it was time to just set that aside for a bit and move on to the interior. Now the main chassis piece itself is also the main bucket of the interior. That was primed and painted black, and then I could move on to painting the rest of the interior pieces as well. Firstly, just starting off with some primer and then painting it in one of their base colors. With the exterior being a nice bright red, I thought I'd continue that theme onto the interior itself by highlighting some of the accent pieces with a bright red too. So that was painted first, then I set that aside to cure for a bit, and in the meantime moved on to some of the other pieces and already started painting those black. I let the pieces cure for a bit and then moved on to carefully starting off with masking. I decided just to keep it a bit simple and not go too bright. I could do a large section of the seat in a red, but I didn't really think that would suit it. Although it is a loud, shouty car, I still didn't really like the look of that on the interior, so I decided just to keep it simple and add a couple of nice detail and highlight pieces in black. So some of these sections on the side were masked off carefully, both on the back part of the seat and also the seating position part where you put your ass on the seat as well. And with this part now masked off, I also wanted to add a bit more detail on that centerpiece. There is a nice dividing line in the middle, and I thought it would be a cool idea to just highlight that and make that a red paint stripe as well. So that was quickly masked off too. I cut out a couple of areas just to break it up a little bit and could then move on to painting the rest of the seat in a matching black to the other interior pieces. A couple coats of black later, and then it was time to let it cure for just a little bit before peeling off all the masking tape and revealing the red sections. When masking off and painting, there were a couple of chips that I might have created while cutting, so these quickly needed to be touched up with some red and black. Now luckily this paint is both usable for in the airbrush and also works really well in a brush, so it blends together really nicely after just a couple light coats. After doing the touch-up, I decided to add a flat clear coat or a matte clear coat on the entire interior, as it was just a bit too glossy. The semi-gloss black was pretty much fine, but the red was just a bit too glossy on some areas, and I wanted to blend it together nicely and have a same overall finish, so the matte clear coat blended that together really well. So a couple coats of clear were applied. I let that sit and cure for a couple of hours and could then move on to adding additional details to the interior. Starting off with some simulated carpet, I'm laying down a nice thick layer of semi-gloss clear, and then on top of that I will sprinkle some of the flocking material to simulate that carpet look. The clear coat acts as a glue, and then it of course adheres to the flocking material, creating that carpet. Some of the other interior pieces of course needed some extra detail too, so I moved on to adding a quick base coat of silver to the steering wheel and also the center console, which later will be painted over with a clear red. Painted the door handles with a silver too, and then also did some other details on the dashboard and center console and door panels with a gunmetal gray. This gunmetal section didn't really turn out the way that I wanted it to. It was a bit too streaky, but it was too late now since the paint was already applied and I couldn't really touch it up or change it afterwards. But for the next time, it's probably better just to mask it off and paint it with the airbrush to get a nice smooth finish. So the main dashboard piece has a nice semi-gloss finish, but I wanted the vents just to stand out a little bit and have a different tone, so those were painted with flat black. When I received the initial package with the prototype kit, there were no decals included. A couple weeks later, I did receive an envelope with some decals, some of them prototype decals, some of them from other Lamborghini kits and other kits they had laying around, just to finish off this build and also add some more detail to the interior. I got a decal sheet from a Lamborghini Huracan, of course, which is usable for this one, as it is a Lamborghini Huracan, and most of these decals will just transfer over easily. So those decals were applied and I could then move on to the final assembly. And with that final door panel on, that's it for the interior. I hope you liked this video, and let me know down in the comments below what you think of this color combination and the overall look of the interior. Next up, I will add a couple details on the underside of the chassis, just painting some of the parts with a silver and also some Panelline accent color. Not too much to show because there isn't too much detail there, but I will just give it a little bit of attention. And then of course also finish up all of the suspension parts, the wheels, the brakes, and finish the entire build hopefully as well.